Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parishara Stotar Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Tagore Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter number 11, titled Calculation of Time from the Atom. Nimesa Stri Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha Lagutada Sapanchacha Nimesa Stri Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha Nimesa Stri Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha. Matavis. Nimesastu Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha Nimesa Stri Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanan Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha Nimesa Stri Lavogneya Amnataste Trayashanaha Shanam Pancha Vidukastam Lagutada Sapanchacha. Word for word translation. Nimesa, the duration of time called a nimesa. Trilavaha, the duration of three lovers. Neya, is to be known. Amnataha, it is so called. Te, they. Trayaha, three. Shanaha, the duration of time called a shana. Shanan, such shanas. Pancha, five. Vidu, one should understand. Kastam, the duration of time called the kasta. Lagu, the duration of time called the lagu. Ta, those. Dasa pancha, 15. Cha, also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: the duration of time of 3 lovers is equal to 1 nimesa. The combination of 3 nimesas makes 1 shana. 5 shanas combined together make 1 kasta, and 15 kastas make 1 lagu. Purport: by calculation it is found that 1 lagu is equal to 2 minutes. The atomic calculation of time in terms of Vedic wisdom may be converted into present time with this understanding. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshulamitam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. So recently we started this new chapter, chapter 11 of 3rd canto, titled Calculation of Time from the Atom. So at the start of this, we're in text 7 now. A few verses ago, Maitra Rishi, he was explaining to Vidura how according to the Shastras, time was calculated the first unit of time is calculated according to the movement of the sun and how long the sun takes to pass over 1 atom. And in Sanskrit, 1 atom is paramanu. Like if you remember Brahma Samhita, those famous verses we recite. So in one verse, Brahma says, Andan tarasta paramanu chayan tarastam. So in that verse, the word paramanu comes. And in that verse, Lord Brahma is saying that Krishna, as the super soul, not only is he present in every living being's hearts, but he is also present personally in every single atom or every single paramanu. That's why he says, Andan tarasta paramanu chayan tarastam. That the super soul is not only present within the hearts of all living entities, but is also present physically, is also personally present within every single atom in the universe. And one time, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, I think it was on a morning walk, one of Prabhupada's disciples, they asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you're always talking about how as devotees we need to see Krishna everywhere. How the pure devotees of the Lord, they're never separated from Krishna. Wherever they go, they always, constantly, 24 hours a day, they're seeing Krishna. So then this devotee, he asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, when you say that we have to see Krishna everywhere, does that mean we have to see Krishna in every single atom? Is that what the pure devotees are saying? Is it that the pure devotees, they have this divine vision to see all the atoms in the universe and they can see Krishna, 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 Krishna in all the atoms all around them? Is that what it means to see Krishna everywhere? And Prabhupada explained to this disciple that no, it's not like that. And Prabhupada, he answered the question by giving an example. Prabhupada said, just like when you look at my shoes, when you look at my slippers, what do you think? What first comes into your mind? And then this disciple said, when I look at your slippers, I immediately think of you, Srila Prabhupada, that these are Srila Prabhupada's slippers. Then Prabhupada asked, when you look at my glasses on my desk, what do you think of? Then again this disciple said, when I look at your glasses, I think, oh, this is Srila Prabhupada's glasses. So in this way, Prabhupada explained to his disciple, just like when you look at my shoes, immediately you think of me. Just like when you look at my glasses, immediately you think of me. In the same way, this is how the pure devotee, he is constantly seeing Krishna everywhere. Wherever he goes, whatever he sees everything in connection with Krishna. He goes out into the bush, he sees a tree, he thinks, this beauty of nature, it's all coming from Krishna. Krishna is the artist behind the beauty of nature. And these birds, Krishna is sitting within the hearts of these birds. Krishna is sitting within the hearts of these cockatoos. In this way, he sees everything in relation to Krishna. And in that way, in that consciousness, a pure devotee, he is able to see Krishna anywhere and everywhere. So then this disciple understood. So seeing Krishna everywhere, it's not something very complicated that we have to, try and see Krishna within every atom, see a picture of Krishna here, everywhere. No, Prabhupada just explained that seeing Krishna means you see everything in connection with Krishna. See everything as Krishna's energy. See all the conditioned souls out there as Krishna's parts and parcels, not just human beings, even the animals, see them as children of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. In this way, externally we'll be seeing different things, but internally, when we connected with Krishna, we will actually be seeing Krishna. In this way, a devotee of the Lord, he is never separated from the Supreme Lord. So the same word Paramanu, which Lord Brahma is mentioning in his prayers, how Krishna, as the Super Soul, he is physically present within every single Paramanu, he is physically present in every single atom. The same word comes in this chapter. And how does it come? Maitra Rishi explains that the smallest unit of time is called a Paramanu, and that the smallest unit of time is calculated by the amount of time it takes for the sun to pass over one atom. So it's very, very tiny, very, very small. Then he further, Maitra Rishi, he further then increases the time duration. Then if you take 2 Paramanus, it becomes just go back a few verses and find the text where he's explaining this. Okay, the division of gross time is calculated as follows. 2 atoms make up 1 double atom, and a double atom is called Anu. And then 3 double atoms or 6 double atoms make up a hexa atom, and a hexam atom is called a Trasa Renu. And this Trasa Renus, Bhagavatam explains that this hexa atom is visible in the sunshine, which enters through the holes of a window screen. One can clearly see that the hexa atom goes up towards the sky. Then text number 6, which was yesterday's verse, Maitra Rishi is explaining, the time duration needed for the integration of 3 Trasa Renus is called a Truti. And 100 Trutis make 1 Veda, and 3 Vedas make 1 Lava. So this is text 6. If we go a bit forward to text 14, in the purport to text 14, Prabhupada gives the calculation or the conversion of all these Vedic time terms into modern day time. For example, in that purport, if you go to text 14 purport, Prabhupada explains, 1 Truti is 8 divided by 13,500 of a second. 1 Veda is 8 over 135 of a second. And 1 Lava is 8 over 45 of a second. So 1 Lava is approximately 1/6 of a second. And just like Paramanu we've heard of before, this word Lava also we've heard of in the famous verse, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Sastra Koi, Lava Mata Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So this verse comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu himself is reciting this verse. He's explaining how all the Shastras, they conclude that simply by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all perfection. And the time that Mahaprabhu uses is a lava. Just by a lava just by the time period which is existing in a lava, or just by 1/6 of a second of association with a pure devotee, one can immediately attain all perfection. So that's how powerful Sadhu Sangha is. That's how powerful association with pure devotees of the Lord is. That what to speak of spending 10 minutes with them, half an hour or a few minutes. According to Mahaprabhu, forget about spending 10-15 minutes with them. Just if you come and associate with them with 1/6 of a second. 1/6 of a second is a lava. Mahaprabhu says if you just come and associate 1/6 of a second, which we can't even conceive, just by that short, inconceivably small amount of time, one can immediately attain all perfection. That's how powerful Sadhu Sangha is. In Narottam Das Thakur's prayers, bhajans, in our bookshelf, we have a lot of Vaishnava songs books, and there's a series of many songs given by Narottam Das Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And in one of the songs of Narottam Das Thakur, he explains that when it comes to purifying ourselves, like we've committed so many sins, we have so many mature desires, we have so many attachments, and we want to purify ourselves, we want to become pure. And how to do that? one way, Narottam Das Thakur explains, one way is you can go to the holy rivers, like Mother Ganga, take bath, and you can free yourself of the sins. That's one way. But Narottam Das Thakur explains that more powerful than taking bath in the Ganga is to take the association of a pure devotee of the Lord. And Narottam Das Thakur explains that when it comes to taking bath in the Ganga, only after repeatedly, not just once, but repeatedly, numerous times, dozens of times, day in and day out, coming and taking bath in the Ganga, can one free himself of all sins. So it's not just you just dip in once, okay, that's it, I'm completely pure. Narottam Das Thakur, he explains that only after repeatedly, day in and day out, again and again, constantly taking bath in the Ganga, can one slowly purify himself of all the sins and mature desires and attachments. But on the other hand, Narottam Das Thakur, he explains, the pure devotees of Lord, they're so powerful that what to speak of physically coming in touch with them, physically talking with them, speaking with them, or hearing from them, or rendering some personal service to them, forget about that. Just by a moment's darshan of the pure devotee. Narottam Das Thakur explains, if you just simply look at a pure devotee of the Lord, just for a second, you just take his darshan, just by that momentary darshan of the pure devotee of the Lord, one can immediately be freed of all the sins he has committed. One can immediately become pure. In this way, Narottam Das Thakur, again, he glorifies the power of sadhu sangha, the power of the association of the pure devotees of the Lord. And he puts forward this argument by making a comparison with Mother Ganga, how if you want to purify yourself by taking dip in the holy waters, only after repeated baths, one slowly purifies himself. On the other hand, you just come, take darshan of pure devotee of Lord, just like that, in a second, one can get purified of all of his sins. So in this way, this word lava, it comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu, he uses this to explain the power of sadhu sangha. That just by a lava association of a devotee of the Lord, just by 1/6 of an association with a purity of the Lord, one can attain all perfection. So that word lava came yesterday. And today's verse, text 7, I'll read the translation again. The duration of time of 3 lovers. So if you combine 3 lovers together, so one lover is 1/6 of a second, so 3 times 1/6 is half of a second. So half of a second is equal to 1 nimesa. So one lava is 1/6 of a second, 1 nimesa is half of a second. Then the combination of 3 nimesas make 1 shana. Then 5 shanas combined together make 1 kasta, and 15 kastas make 1 lagu. We'll go to the next verse, text 8. Laguni vai samamnata dasapancha chanadika te dve muhurta prahara sadyama saptavaninam. Translation: 15 lagus make 1 nadika, which is also called a danda. 2 dandas make 1 muhurta, and 6 or 7 dandas make 1/4 of a day or night, according to human calculations. So if we go forward again to the purport of text 14, Prabhupada gives the modern day conversion for these Vedic terms. So 1 nadika, Prabhupada explains, or 1 shana. 1 shana is 8/5 of a second, and 1 kasta is 8 seconds, 1 lagu is 2 minutes, 1 danda is 30 minutes, 1 prahara is 3 hours. We'll go to next text, text number 9. Dvadasardva palonmanam chaturbis chatur angule swarnamase krita chidram yavat prasta jalaplutam. The measuring pot for 1 nadika or danda can be prepared with a 6 pala weight, 14-ounce pot of copper, in which a hole is bored with a gold probe weighing 4 masa and measuring 4 fingers long. When the pot is placed on water, the time before the water overflows in the pot is called 1 danda. It is advised herein that the bore in the copper measuring pot must be made with a probe weighing not more than 4 masa and measuring not longer than 4 fingers. This regulates the diameter of the hole. The pot is submerged in water, and the overflooding time is called a danda. This is another way of measuring the duration of a danda, just as time is measured by sand in a glass. It appears that in the days of Vedic civilization, there was no breadth of knowledge in physics, chemistry, or higher mathematics. Measurements were calculated in different ways, as simply as could be done. So this verse is talking about the time measurement of a danda. And text 14, Prabhupada is explaining, danda is 30 minutes. And in this verse, Maitreya Rishi is saying that it's amazing how accurately Maitreya Rishi is describing. Maitreya Rishi is saying, if you take a copper pot with a weight of a certain amount, with a weight of 6 pala or 14 ounce, then you make a hole in that copper pot. And again, Bhagavatam is even going to the detail of explaining how big that hole in the copper pot should be. So Bhagavatam gives the size of the pot. The pot should be this much weight. And Bhagavatam also gives how big should the hole be in the copper pot. So the hole in the copper pot should be of a certain diameter. And then Bhagavatam explains, you put that pot in water. And then you wait for water to seep in through the hole into the copper pot. And the time it takes for all the water to go into the copper pot and overflow the copper pot, that time period is called a danda. So in the purport Prabhupada is explaining, from this we can just see that how advanced Vedic civilization was. That such scientific calculations are given in these Shastras which were compiled thousands of years ago. And that's why Prabhupada writes, it appears that in the days of Vedic civilization there was no breadth of knowledge in physics, chemistry, or higher mathematics. Measurements were calculated in different ways, as simply as could be done. More amazing calculations we'll see especially in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, which we all know, where Vedic cosmology is described. In that, a whole overview of how the universe is situated is explained. Where planet Earth is situated, where all the other planetary systems are, how far calculations, exact calculations are given of how far the sun is away from planet Earth, how far is the moon from planet Earth, how long it takes for the sun to do its orbit, how long it takes for the moon to do its orbit. All of these calculations, all of these figures are given in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam. And when was these calculations given? These calculations were given or written down 5,000 years ago. And Sukadeva Goswami explains that, in Vedic culture, this is all commonly known. So thousands and thousands of years ago, all these great sages and rishis, they knew all these amazing calculations, all these amazing distances, time periods, so on and so forth. So in this way, Prabhupada explains in his morning walks that from this we can see how the modern theory, Darwin's theory, or this modern belief that human beings only came to existence only a few thousand years ago, and how initially, many, many thousands of years ago, we were just all apes, and then slowly, after we evolved, apes became human beings, and that's how we came to be. So then Prabhupada explains, if we were all apes before, if we were all monkeys before, how can monkeys come up with these amazing calculations? How can monkeys come up with these such scientific statements regarding time periods, regarding how far the sun is away from the earth, regarding how far the moon is away from the earth? How can monkeys come up with these figures of, how long it takes for the sun to do its orbit, how long it takes for the moon to do its orbit? So then naturally when we study the Shastras, we can understand, Prabhupada explains, that this human form of life has always existed. And this Darwin's theory is just a theory, a false theory, it's not actual fact. And one time Prabhupada, he was joking that, their ancestor might be monkeys, but my ancestors, they're not monkeys. Like this Prabhupada used to tease these modern scientists. So that's the main point Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, how from these such accurate, precise measurements given in Bhagavatam, we can understand how in Vedic culture there was no shortage of knowledge in physics, chemistry, or higher mathematics. Another point about time I thought we can discuss is, as we all know, time is Krishna himself. And if we study Nectar of Devotion is very nice. It's called, Prabhupada titled Nectar of Devotion as the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. And as we all know, Srimati Radharani, she's the personification of Bhakti, or a personification of devotional service. So Prabhupada, he used to say that Krishna book is non-different from Krishna. So Krishna book is, when you read Krishna book, you're personally associating with Krishna. In the same way, Prabhupada, he explained that Nectar of Devotion is all about Bhakti, it's all about the complete science of devotional service. So Nectar of Devotion is non-different from Srimati Radharani. So when we're reading Nectar Devotion, we're associating with Srimati Radharani, the Queen of Devotional Service. And when we're reading Krishna book, we're associating with Gopinath, or we're associating with Krishna. So in Nectar Devotion, in one chapter, Rupa Goswami, he is describing the symptoms of bhava. Bhava is the preliminary stage before Krishna Prema. So Krishna Prema is what we're all aspiring for. Pure love of Krishna, pure love of Godhead. The stage just before Krishna Prema is called Bhava Bhakti. And one of the symptoms of a devotee who is in Bhava Bhakti is Avyata Kalatvam. And Avyata Kalatvam means that a devotee of the Lord, he is so much engrossed in ecstatic love for Krishna that he doesn't want to waste a single moment not being in connection with Krishna. He doesn't want to waste a single moment in not doing any devotional service. He has that intense greed, he has that intense thirst to always, every single second, every single moment, to be engaged in Krishna's service. And he can't bear to spare a single moment being away from Krishna's devotional service. So this is one of the characteristics given of an advanced devotee who is in the stage of Bhava Bhakti. So this is one quality I thought we can meditate on, of how to utilize every single moment in Krishna's service. And we see Srila Prabhupada, through his own practical example, demonstrating this throughout his life, how every single moment Prabhupada was engaged in devotional service, how strictly he was constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. In first canto Bhagavatam, Prabhupada explains that there is two Bhagavatams. There is one, the book Bhagavatam, which we all know, that's one type of Bhagavatam. And then there is also the person Bhagavatam, the devotee Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada explains there is no difference between the book Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam. There is exactly no difference between the book Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada explains the same benefits that one can derive by taking shelter of the book Bhagavatam, the exact same benefits one can derive by taking the association of the person Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada, as the person Bhagavatam, by his own practical example, he was demonstrating this principle of the Shastras, how a devotee of the Lord he is supposed to utilize every single moment in the service of the Supreme Lord. So as we all know, Prabhupada, he used to sleep late at night and he used to wake up super early in the morning. He used to wake up usually at 1 o'clock early in the morning, and every day he would sleep for maybe 2 hours at night, maybe max 3 hours. So when we think of that, that's like scary for us. How can maybe once a year we can survive that on Janmashtami or something, Janmashtami festival goes late, and by the time we sleep, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, the next day is Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, then again we wake up early, just sleeping 2-3 hours, then we come to a temple. So once in a year, maybe we have that experience, and that's it, After the Prabhupada Vyas Puja is over, after we've taken the Maha Feast, 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, we come and we knock out, and we take rest and catch up on our sleep. But every day, every night, that's how long Prabhupada used to sleep, just for 2-3 hours. He would go to bed at 10, wake up 1 o'clock in the morning. And then, waking up 1 o'clock in the morning, immediately he would start translating all these books that we all have in our bookshelf. So Prabhupada, he compiled 60-70 different books just in the space of 10 years. So if you look at modern day famous authors like J.K. Rowling or so on and so forth, at max they'll produce one book every year. So that will be the speed at which they would produce a book. But Prabhupada, he produced like close to 70 books in just 10 years. So how much is that? That's 70 divided by 10, that's like 7 books every year. That's the speed at which Prabhupada is writing. And these modern day authors, that's the only thing they do. That's their profession. That's their full-time profession, is to just write a particular novel or write a particular book. And even though that's the only thing they're doing, it takes them roughly a whole year to produce a new book. But Prabhupada, he wasn't just only writing book. That wasn't his only service. While writing his book, he was managing a whole worldwide society of devotees. He was managing a society which had so many temples all over the world. Not just in one country, one continent, but he had temples in every single country. He had temples in every single city all around the world. And he used to manage everyone. And every day he would get numerous letters by different disciples, some from America, some from Europe, some from Canada, some from America, some from India, all devotees writing to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we're having this problem, Prabhupada, we're doing this, Prabhupada, can you please tell us how we should do this? So alongside writing these books, alongside publishing 7 books every year, Prabhupada was managing a whole worldwide society of thousands of devotees, a worldwide society with 100 temples. All of the letters that Srila Prabhupada has written, they're all compiled into these 5 huge thick books called Srila Prabhupada Shikshamrita. And in that compilation of Prabhupada's letters, it's given, Prabhupada has written roughly close to 7,000 letters to his disciples. So that's how many letters Prabhupada has either personally written or narrated, and his disciples have typed for him. 7,000 letters. So alongside producing 70 volumes of books in 10 years, Prabhupada was also managing a whole worldwide society of devotees all around the world. Prabhupada was managing a whole society of temples around the world. And Prabhupada dictated more than 7,000 letters to his disciples. So again, when we think about it, it's just like, how can one man do this? This is like the work of 10 men. This is like a work of a whole army of people doing this. But Prabhupada, being a pure devotee of the Lord, he was empowered by Krishna to do all these amazing feats. Like sleeping just for 2 hours a day, sleeping just for 3 hours a day, publishing so many books, writing so many letters, managing so many devotees, managing so many temples. It's completely inconceivable for us. How can someone, in just a short period of time, do everything so much? So this all happens by the empowerment of the Supreme Lord. So for his pure devotees, because of their intense desire to preach and spread the glories of the Lord, Krishna empowers them to do amazing things in just a short period of time. Krishna is time himself, so Krishna can empower his devotees to utilize time in an amazing way, to do wonderful things just within a short period of time, because Krishna is non-different from time. So in this way, Prabhupada, he used to wake up very early in the morning. And for us, if we wake up very early in the morning, some or other, then we'll be very a half-conscious state. We'll be very drowsy, and our brain won't be fully functioning. We'll be like half asleep, and we won't be fully conscious. Our intelligence would be half asleep. But Prabhupada, he was fully alert and his whole consciousness was completely sharp early in the morning. Even though he would have only slept for 2-3 hours, his consciousness was fully sharp, his intelligence was sharp, so much so, he was personally reading all the commentaries of the different acharyas. Prabhupada, when he was dictating the translations and the purports to Bhagavatam, the way he would do it, he would have this initially he had a few books, and these few books would have the commentaries of different acharyas. For example, one book would have the commentary of Srila Jiva Goswami, one book will have the commentary of Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur, one book would have the commentary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. And Prabhupada will look and read the purports of all the different acharyas, and then Prabhupada will dictate his purport. So all this Prabhupada was doing very early in the morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. At that time of day, even if we somehow or other wake up, we'll be half asleep, very drowsy, but Prabhupada's intelligence was fully sharp, and he was doing all this. Later on, one Indian professor, he compiled one thick book which had all the commentaries of different acharyas all in one book. So then later on, Prabhupada, he got that as a gift from this professor from India, and then Prabhupada would just refer to that particular book. And that particular book would have 3, 4, or 5 different acharyas' commentaries. So there'll be one verse of Bhagavatam, then commentary by Jiva Goswami, Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur, so on and so forth. And Prabhupada would read all the commentaries and then dictate his purports to Bhagavatam. In this way, Prabhupada would compile the Bhagavatam, compile all of his books very early in the morning. And Prabhupada was fully alert in the morning. So much so, one time in Vrindavan, in the Krishna Balaram temple, Prabhupada, early in the morning, he wakes up as usual. It's like maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. He's dictating his Srimad Bhagavatam with his tape recorder. And then Prabhupada, he rings his bell. So as we all know, Prabhupada, he had a servant bell. Whenever the bell rings, it means Prabhupada needs something, and then immediately the servant would get up and run towards Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhupada, what can I do for you? Yes, the servant will come, offer his dandavats, and ask Prabhupada, how may I serve you, Srila Prabhupada? So early in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, usually Prabhupada doesn't do this. Usually early in the morning, Prabhupada doesn't ring the bell. But this particular day in Vrindavan, Prabhupada, he starts ringing the bell so early in the morning, again and again. 2 o'clock in the morning. Then immediately the servant is asleep, he wakes up, oh, Prabhupada's ringing the bell, and half asleep the devotee comes running to Srila Prabhupada. yes, Srila Prabhupada, what's wrong, what can I do? Did something happen, Srila Prabhupada? And then Prabhupada stops and he says, just hear. And then the devotee says, I'm hearing Prabhupada, but I can't hear anything. And then Prabhupada says, that's the point. The security guard of the temple, his service was that at every hour, he's supposed to ring the bell. Ting, 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 ting. So in that way, the security guard, he will stay awake the whole night. And if the security guard, if he's not ringing the bell at every hour, it means the security guard has fallen asleep and he's not doing his job properly. So Prabhupada had set up the standard that whoever is being paid to be the security guard of the Krishna Balaram temple, every hour, okay, it's 12 o'clock midnight, he should ring the bell. Ting, ting, ting. 1 o'clock in the morning, again ring the bell. Ting, ting, ting. 2 o'clock in the morning, again ring the bell. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, Prabhupada notices, Prabhupada is so alert and focused, he notices that there is no ringing of the bell in the Krishna Balaram temple, which means the security guard has fallen asleep. So then Prabhupada, he tells his servant, see, there's no ringing of the bell, it means the security guard must have fallen asleep. Go wake him up. Then this disciple, he goes running down and he sees, sure enough, as Prabhupada said, the security guard at the front of the temple, he's fallen asleep. And then the disciple, he wakes up the security guard. So this is how alert Srila Prabhupada was. One would think that early in the morning, Prabhupada would just be fully focused in Bhagavatam and, whatever else is happening, he wouldn't be thinking about it. But Prabhupada, he was completely alert of everything, whatever is happening around him. This is how sharp and switched on Srila Prabhupada was. So again, this is another example of Prabhupada being so switched on in terms of time, using time. So in this way, early in the morning, Srila Prabhupada would translate his books. Then after spending a few hours translating, dictating his books, then Prabhupada would chant his rounds. Prabhupada would chant some japa. And one time to tease his disciples or to make fun of his disciples, their mood in chanting their rounds, Shruta Prabhu, he explains, one time Srila Prabhupada was chanting his rounds, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then he was chanting a round, then he finished chanting one particular round, then he pulled one counter beat down. So we all have 16 counter beats. After we finish each round, we pull one beat down. So Prabhupada is chanting, Shruta Prabhu, Prabhupada's personal servant, he's also there with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada pulls one counter beat down, and then Prabhupada puts his beat back on the desk, and then tells Sutta Kriti Prabhu that there, now my 16 rounds is finished, now I can do any damn thing I like. And this way Prabhupada, he teases Sutta Kriti Prabhu and all of his disciples. That this is the unfortunate consciousness of all of my disciples, that their whole focus, their whole endeavor is to somehow or other just finish the 16 rounds, and once they finish the 16 rounds, it's okay, finish 16 rounds, now I can go off and do whatever I like. So in this way, sometimes Prabhupada used to tease his disciples. So after dictating his books, Prabhupada used to chant some japa, and then after that, Prabhupada would go for a morning walk. And initially when Prabhupada came to America, morning walk wasn't part of his schedule. And if we read Lilamrit, it's explained there how Prabhupada started going on morning walk. It's explained during the early days. One time Prabhupada, he had some health crisis. Either he got a stroke or a heart attack, something like that. So he had some serious illness, and then a doctor came to treat Srila Prabhupada. And this doctor the devotees brought for Srila Prabhupada, this doctor, he was a bit crazy, or he was half drunk, and he wasn't really a proper doctor. He was like half crazy, or the devotees explained either he was on drugs or he was a bit drunk. And he was saying crazy things. And while checking Srila Prabhupada, one of the things he mentions is that, this old man, he needs to do some exercise. Like that, this doctor just passes a statement like that. And then this doctor, he leaves. And then the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they're, thankful that finally this crazy doctor has gone, Because this doctor, he seemed that he was a bit crazy or he was a bit drunk. And then next day, Prabhupada, he tells his disciple that today I'm going to go for a morning walk. The doctor who came to see me, he recommended that I should do some exercise. So from today onwards, I'm going to go and do a morning walk. Then his disciples, they told Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, that doctor, he was crazy, he was a madman. He was drunk or he was like a drugger. He didn't know what he was saying. Then Prabhupada responds, he may be whatever he is, but he gave good advice. And when someone gives good advice, you just accept it as that advice is coming from Krishna and you just take it, apply it in your life. And his advice, although he might be crazy, although he might be, so on and so forth, the advice he gave was good. So, let us follow it. Yes, exercise is good for health. So from today onwards, I'll do exercise. From today onwards, early in the morning, I'll go for a morning walk. That's how Prabhupada started his morning walks. Another example of Prabhupada taking instructions of just some random person is in New Delhi, I think. In the early days before ISKCON started, Prabhupada used to personally write his Back to God magazines and personally print his Back to God magazines. He would personally write the magazines and he would personally go to the printer, print the magazines, and then he himself would personally go into the streets of Delhi, and in the 40-degree heat, he himself used to personally distribute and sell his own magazines. So Prabhupada was doing everything. He himself was the author, he himself was the publisher or the printer of his magazines, and he himself was distributing his own magazines. So one day in New Delhi, while Prabhupada was trying to sell his magazines, one man, he comes up to Srila Prabhupada and advises Srila Prabhupada. Just one random person off the street just comes to Srila Prabhupada and tells Srila Prabhupada that, you're writing these magazines and distributing them, but these magazines, people won't value them. No one values magazines, no one values newspapers. They'll just read it and then they just throw it in the bin. Magazines and newspapers, max they'll last for 1 or 2 days. After 1-2 days, people will just throw it in the bin. There's no value in writing these magazines. Instead, what you should do, you should write books. If you write a book and give to a person, that book will stay in the house for their whole life. People value books, people put books in their bookshelf, and the books will last for their whole life. Whereas magazines, newspapers, people will just throw in the bin. So instead, you should write books. Then again, even though this person, he wasn't a devotee, it's not like this person was a senior godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, or a sannyasi, or some Babaji. This was just a random person on the street. But because he was giving good advice, which Prabhupada thought was favorable for Krishna's service, Prabhupada took that advice. And from then, Prabhupada started focusing more on producing books. And later on, when book distribution was going on, Prabhupada would advise his devotees that distributing Back to Godhead magazines is nice, but I'm more pleased if you distribute hardbound Shastras. When you distribute hardbound Bhagavad Gitas, when you distribute hardbound Krishna books, Srimad Bhagavatams, that's most pleasing to me. Because these hardbound Shastras like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, people will really value, people will appreciate, and they will keep it in the house lifelong. No one will pay $10, buy a hardbound book, and then just throw it after 2 days. They've spent their hard-earned money, got a nice book with nice paintings and pictures from a monk. They'll value it, they'll keep it in the house, it will last for a whole lifetime. So Prabhupada later on, when book distribution was going on, Prabhupada was pushing more on the distribution of hardbound books, more than Back to God and magazine distribution. So again, this is another instance of Prabhupada taking advice from someone who's not even a devotee, taking advice from a random person, but because the advice was favorable for Krishna's service, Prabhupada took it to heart and applied it in his life. So in this way, this is the injunction of the Shastras, that just like if there is gold in a filthy, this is I think maybe by Chanakya Pandit or someone, Prabhupada writes this in Bhagavatam, that if there is gold in a pile of garbage, one shouldn't be hesitant and think, oh, it's a pile of garbage, I should not go there. But rather, one should go, take the austerity and pick up the gold and use the gold in one's life. In the same way, even if good instruction is coming from someone who is low-born or coming from someone who's not very, high-end in society, one should still take the good instruction and apply in his life. And Prabhupada practically demonstrated this in his own life. So that's how Prabhupada, he started his morning walks. So early in the morning, he'll wake up, translate his books, then he will chant rounds, then again he'll go on a morning walk, chant more rounds, preach to his disciples on more. Then he would come just on time for darshanati. So 7:15, Prabhupada would be in the temple, ready to greet the deities. So at that time he would finish his morning walk. Then Prabhupada will give Bhagavatam class. And then during the day, there was a fixed time at which Prabhupada used to get his massage. And his personal servant would massage Srila Prabhupada with mustard oil. One time Prabhupada told his disciples that 3 things keep me alive. Number 1 is the massage. The massage my disciples give me, that's number 1, that keeps me alive. Number 2 is my Ayurvedic medicine. So there was certain Ayurvedic medicine Prabhupada used to take daily. And number 3 is my morning walk, the exercise I do early in the morning. These 3 things keep me alive, these 3 things push me on. keep me healthy and strong. My Ayurvedic medicine, my morning walks, and my daily massage. So every day at a particular time during the day, Prabhupada, he used to get massaged by his disciples. And Prabhupada would want his disciples to really dig into his bones and really give him a nice hard massage. Like Bhavananda Prabhu, when he came on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, he was explaining one instance how Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he comes and starts massaging Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, he doesn't know who's massaging him. Prabhupada just has his eyes closed, and Prabhupada is getting the massage from Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And then Prabhupada asks, who is this? And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, it's me, Tamal Krishna. And then Prabhupada tells Tamal Krishna Maharaj, this is not massage, this is just a love pat. Go get Bhavananda. Bhavananda knows how to really give me a good massage. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj goes, and then Bhavananda Prabhu comes. So when Prabhupada used to get his massage, he really wanted devotees to really dig into his muscles and really give him a good, healthy massage. So he would used to use mustard oil for his body, and he used to get sandalwood oil for his head. Sandalwood oil helped keep the head cool during the summer. Then at a particular time, Prabhupada would have his lunch, at a fixed period of time, 1 o'clock. And the prasad, again, Prabhupada was very particular about the time Prabhupada used to take his lunch. And before lunch, Prabhupada would go take a shower. So after his massage, Prabhupada would go take a shower, then come have his lunch at a particular time. Then after lunch, Prabhupada would sometimes take a small nap in the afternoon for an hour or two. Then later on, Prabhupada will greet different devotees and guests, and many times in the afternoons, Prabhupada used to go into the garden of a particular temple, and Prabhupada will sit back, and Prabhupada will get one of his disciples to read Krishna book out loud, or read Chaitanya Charitamrita out loud. And a disciple would pick up Krishna book or Chaitanya Charitamrita and would read out loud, and Prabhupada and all the other devotees, they would hear Krishna Katha. And one time, someone asked Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, how is it that you're reading your own books? How is it that you're hearing your own books, Isn't that a bit weird? Like, you yourself have written these books, and you yourselves are also every day reading these books. You yourself are also, getting your disciples to read out loud from your books. Isn't that a bit strange? Then what was Prabhupada's response? Prabhupada said, actually, I didn't write these books. Actually, Krishna, he wrote these books. Krishna dictated to me, and whatever Krishna was dictating to me, I just spoke out loud, and that's recorded, and my disciples just typed it. It's not me who wrote these books, it's actually Krishna himself. One time, Bhavananda Prabhu, I think this was either in Calcutta or Mayapur, Prabhupada personally told this to Bhavananda Prabhu. Prabhupada told Bhavananda Prabhu that actually I was in Goloka Vrindavan and I didn't want to come to this material world. But Krishna insisted. Krishna said, no, you go to the material world and you please preach my glories. And Prabhupada says, but I didn't want to come. And I was arguing with Krishna. No, Krishna, I don't want to leave you. No, I don't want to come. And then Prabhupada said, Krishna told Prabhupada that don't worry, you just simply go to the material world and you just simply write these books. You just go to the material world and write these books and everything will be all right. Everything will be fine. In this way, Krishna convinced Prabhupada and Prabhupada came down. So one instance, either in Calcutta or Mayapur, Prabhupada, he tells this story to Bhavananda Prabhu. So in this way, Prabhupada would, in the late afternoon, he would be in the garden, nicely relaxed. The late afternoon breeze would come, very nice cool breeze. And Prabhupada would relax and hear Krishna book. Mainly Krishna book, Prabhupada here. One time Prabhupada told his disciples that out of all of his books, his favorite book is Krishna book. Prabhupada loved his Krishna book the most. Because Krishna book is the summary of 10th canto of Bhagavatam. And 10th canto of Bhagavatam is the smiling face of the Lord. So that was Srila Prabhupada's favorite book, and Prabhupada would relish listening to Krishna book. And sometimes Prabhupada will give, while Prabhupada will hear Krishna book, sometimes Prabhupada will give additional details which aren't mentioned in Bhagavatam and which Prabhupada hasn't also mentioned in Krishna book himself. For example, I was hearing recently how Prabhupada was hearing the story of Krishna marrying Rukmini. And while Prabhupada is hearing this chapter from Krishna book, the scene comes where Krishna, he grabs Mother Rukmini, puts Rukmini onto his chariot. It's given in Krishna book of Bhagavatam that Krishna, he picks up Mother Rukmini, just like Garuda, he snatched the pot of nectar from the demigods. So all these great princes and great kings are assembled, but Krishna, he just comes in with his chariot and just scoops up Mother Rukmini, puts her on the chariot. So as Prabhupada is hearing this narration, Prabhupada immediately stops the disciples and Prabhupada gives an additional detail by saying that when Krishna, he kidnapped Mother Rukmini and put Mother Rukmini on the chariot, at that time, Mother Rukmini, she took up the reins of the chariot and Mother Rukmini personally started driving the chariot for Krishna. And Prabhupada explains, it's not that Rukmini, she was just a young girl who didn't know how to do anything. But actually she was very qualified and she knew how to do so many different things. So much so she even knew how to, being a Kshatriya lady, she knew how to drive a chariot also. So when Krishna scoops up Mother Rukmini into his chariot, then Krishna, he lets go of the reins, and Mother Rukmini, she herself personally starts picking up the reins and she personally starts driving the chariot for Krishna. And then when devotees, they look into Krishna book, that's not mentioned in Krishna book. And when you go to Bhagavatam, that's also not mentioned in Bhagavatam or in the purports by the commentaries of the Acharyas of Srimad Bhagavatam. But somehow Prabhupada, he had that insight. Obviously Prabhupada is the Nitya Siddha devout Lord. He's personally coming from Goloka Vrindavan, so he has all this insight into the pastimes of the Lord. So in this way, very sweetly, Prabhupada used to have these sweet moments in the late afternoon with his devotees, hearing Krishna Katha. And Prabhupada, another time he would explain that this is what Sadhu Sangha is all about. Sadhu Sangha means two devotees, they come together and they read Bhagavatam together. Two devotees, they come together and they hear and chant about Krishna. This is the real meaning of Sadhu Sangha. And one time, this is in Kurma Prabhu's Great Transcendental Adventure, where Kurma Prabhu is writing about all of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes in Australia, in Sydney, Melbourne, New Zealand. In that book, either in Sydney or Melbourne, Prabhupada is present, and one of Prabhupada's servants, his name was Upendra, the famous Upendra. He was present also. So the two persons who started up Krishna consciousness in Australia are Upendra and Bali Madan. So Upendra was present there in Australia. And Prabhupada, he overhears Upendra Prabhu speaking with some devotees in the background in the kitchen. And they're talking very excitedly, very enthusiastically. And then Prabhupada immediately calls Upendra to his room. And Prabhupada starts to interrogate Upendra Prabhu that, what are you doing? I heard you talking in the kitchen. And Upendra Prabhu says, yeah, we were just having a nice chat, Srila Prabhupada, in the kitchen. And Prabhupada said, this is not nice chat, this is prajalpa. You're just gossiping. And then Upendra Prabhu, he starts defending himself. But Srila Prabhupada, I was